Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you would even say it glowed. Where should the red need to be? All about halfway up. All of the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names. Stop singing that. Rudolph the
of a Xerox master copy for this particular trust. Now, every place that I use the word blank, take that to mean a bare space. Don't use a blank line, as we frequently do, or generally do with dates. And if I don't give you the number of spaces to leave blank, then you can use your own judgment by referring to the text of the Jesperson Trust here. So, okay, let's take a look at page 1. Notice at the top the name of the trust, Henry Neal Jesperson Family Trust. Let's leave that blank for the time being. Don't type anything in there. Nevertheless, use the same spacing to start the first paragraph, this declaration of trust, and so on. Okay, copy the first paragraph verbatim. This declaration of trust made it entered into this blank day of blank 19 blank blank comma by and between. Now, where these two names go, I want you to leave enough space to type in Karl Sudekum and Emerald Lorraine, Lorraine, when we get to it. Emerald Lorraine Sudekum, comma, as trustors, comma, hereinafter referred to in such capacity as trustors, comma, and now this next space leave enough blank for Emerald Lorraine Sudekum and Allen, A-L-L-A-N, H-A-L-E, Klinger, C-L-I-N-G-E-R, comma, as trustees, and so on to the end of the paragraph. The number 1 under declarations, in A, they are husband and wife and currently reside in Snohomish County. Leave a blank for Snohomish big enough to put, large enough to put Los Angeles in. State of California. Period. On the B part, they have blank children. Let's make that a space enough to spell out 7. To spell out 7. And enough space down below under the names and dates of birth for 7 entries. The C part, I'll have to change that as follows. They own as their community property all the property, comma, real, comma, personal and mixed, comma, described in Schedule A, which is attached hereto, and by this reference made a part hereof. Period. Okay, subparagraph D. It will read, they desire and intend hereby to establish a trust to provide for the disposition of all property described in Schedule A and of such other property as may hereafter be transferred to the trust, period. All right, let's take a look at page 2, paragraph 2, the trust property. The trust property. Okay, that will be pretty much the same, but let me read it through. The trustor is hereby assigned and transferred to the trustees the right to receive the proceeds of the insurance policies described in Schedule A, comma. Now that'll be changed a little bit from this point. Attached hereto and made a part hereof, comma. Leave out by this reference, in other words. and will cause the trustees to be named as the primary beneficiary of such insurance policies, period. The right of the trustees to receive such insurance proceeds, together with such proceeds and such further property. Oh, hold it, I goofed it. The right of the trustees to receive such insurance proceeds, together with such proceeds, and all other property described in Schedule A, and such further property as may be added to this trust, comma, shall constitute the trust estate and shall be held, administered, and so on to the end of the paragraph. So in paragraph 3, the trust name, just leave blank everything after shall be known as the. Leave the entire line blank after that. Copy paragraph 4 verbatim. Now when you get to the top of page 3, you'll note that the very top line is almost illegible. That sentence should read as follows, starting at the bottom of page 2. To the extent that no applicable provision is made herein, comma, such additions shall be allocated among, and so on. Okay, that first sentence of paragraph 5 should read, all property described in Schedule A is and shall remain the community property of the trustors, period. Down in the middle of the paragraph, note that I've stricken out the word Washington, state of Washington. Change that to California, and any place that you find that I have not crossed it out means I've overlooked it, and so please type in California instead of Washington. Okay, copy paragraph 6 verbatim. Clause 7 verbatim. Clause 8 verbatim. Copy clause 9 verbatim. Paragraph 10, leave a blank for Karl Sudekum, and in the first sentence, upon the death of the insured trustor, if he predeceases his wife, leave a blank long enough for Emerald Lorraine Sudekum. Everything else verbatim, and down to the colon. Subclause A verbatim. Then B shall read as follows, the balance of the trust estate as defined in paragraph 2 shall be divided equally between Trust A and Trust B, unless the person or persons who transferred property not described in Schedule A to the trustees shall have stipulated otherwise, period. Okay, right above paragraph 11 on page 6, you'll note that Florence Jesperson's portion, those words, that is, that those words are handwritten in. Just ignore that. Go right into clause 11 verbatim. In subclause A, 11A, where Florence Jesperson is written twice, again leave room for Emerald Lorraine Sudekum. Subclause B on top of page 7 there, verbatim, except the name changes. Subclause C, verbatim except for name changes. Then, of course, when I say name changes, I mean spaces. Page 8 at the top, ignore that UN Jesperson portion or whatever it is. Clause 12A, verbatim except for the name. Clause sub B, verbatim. Now take a look at sub C. The last part of that will be changed a little bit. Start reading where it says, in his sole discretion, consider necessary or desirable to assist them in obtaining an education, comma, okay up to that point. But notice the last line, or to meet family emergencies. I want to meet family emergencies brought up to follow education, so that it reads, consider necessary or desirable to assist them in obtaining an education, comma, to meet family emergencies, comma, and then leave a blank space from that point with enough spaces to provide a type-in of the material that we've omitted. Namely, to provide a type-in to provide funds for fulfilling a full-time mission for the Church of Jesus Christ, you see. And so on to that comma there. Subclause D, verbatim, except for the name. Paragraph E will be verbatim, except I want the word lawful stuck in there before issue. It's just about right following the parentheses, which is enclosing Florence Jesperson or otherwise, about the middle of the first part of the paragraph. And then it reads, shall be divided by the trustees into as many equal shares as the trustor shall leave children then surviving, and deceased children leaving lawful issue then surviving. One share to be held in trust for the benefit of each living child of the trustors, then one share to be held in trust for the benefit of the lawful issue of each then deceased child of the trustors. All the rest of page 9 verbatim. Looking at page 10, to leave a space large enough to accommodate the clause up there at the top of the page that says, including funds for fulfilling a full-time mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints of Mormon, comma. Subclause BB verbatim. CC verbatim. DD verbatim on page 11. The double I subparagraph down at the bottom of page 11. The fifth line, to his then living issue, make it his then living lawful issue. By right of representation, or if there are none, to the then living lawful issue of the trustors. Otherwise, the double I subparagraph verbatim. Subparagraph 3 at the top of page 12, make it living lawful issue there in line 2 again. Same thing in line 4. And the same thing again in line 6. Okay, everything else in 3 there verbatim. Paragraph 13, in addition to the name changes, this will be changed as follows to reflect the fact that we have property other than insurance policies in our trust fund. It'll read, upon the death of blank, if she predeceased blank, comma, all of the property described in Schedule A shall be held in a single trust, hereafter referred to as Trust C, period. And so on to the end of the paragraph. Okay, clause 14 on page 13. Copy that verbatim, except the name changes. Next paragraph, do not number it, however. I authorize my executor to sell, comma, with or without notice, comma, at either public or private sale, comma, and to lease any property belonging to my estate, comma, subject only to such confirmation of court as may be required by law, period. Okay. Second, now this is the second clause of the codicil. Second, colon. In all other respects, I confirm and republish my will, dated, whatever it is, May the 4th, 1967, period. And use the subscription down at the bottom of 691. Be subscribed at San Diego. And the attestation clause on the following page. Okay, now let's get off a short letter, just an original in one, to the Tax Club Press, that's TAX, Tax Club Press, Arizona Land Title Building, Tucson, that's Tucson, Tucson, Arizona. Gentlemen, colon, I have in my library your 2 volumes, TWO, your 2 volumes, comma, and put the title in caps. The Federal Estate and Gift Taxes, comma, 1959 edition, and that's little a and d, and the next title is coming up. The Federal Income Tax, comma, 4th edition, parenthesis 1961, parenthesis closed, period. The latest supplements I have for them is 1964, period. New paragraph, will you please forward your latest supplements and bill this, will you please forward your latest supplements for these 2 volumes and bill this office, period. VDY KDS. Okay, that's it for the moment. Shall hold as tenants in common the real property located at 101 and 103 East 18th Street, National City, California, period. Now, in the next sentence, I want to use the word partition, which I believe means to divide either a tenancy in common or a joint tenancy into separate parcels, each of which parcel will be owned by one of the joint or common tenants. So you better look partition up in the law dictionary. And if the definition I just gave you is correct, we'll use it. Otherwise, leave a space there, and I'll fill it in later. That is, leave a space where the word partition would ordinarily go. Okay, continuing on, the very next sentence, just following National City, California, period. In the event the parties agree to partition said property, comma, the residence known as blank East 18th Street, National City, California, will be the property of defendant wife, and the office known as blank East 18th Street, National City, California, will be the property of plaintiff husband, period. Make it a semicolon instead of a period. Further, comma, the residence property shall have a sidewalk, one word, sidewalk easement over the office property for the purpose of access, ACCESS, to East 18th Street, period. Next paragraph. Okay, now this next paragraph concerns some Castle Park, Chula Vista, California realty, and I believe we have the correct address in the cross complaint someplace. If we do, then we'll want that correct address. Otherwise, it will read as follows. The parties' equity, P-A-R-T-I-E-S apostrophe, the parties' equity in that certain real property owned by them, and if you've got the correct address and all that, we can say at such and whatever it is. If not, we'll say owned by them in Castle Park, Chula Vista, California, shall be determined, period. Plaintiff husband will give a promissory note, P-R-O-M-I-S-S-O-R-Y, in the principal, P-A-L, in the principal amount of 1/2 of said equity to defendant wife, semicolon, making a comma instead of a semicolon, secured by a deed of trust on said real property, semicolon. Said promissory note shall require payments of $75 per month to defendant wife, comma, said payments to begin within 30 days following the date the interlocutory judgment herein is filed, comma, and to continue until the principal amount is paid in full, period. In consideration of the said promissory note and deed of trust, comma, defendant wife will convey her interest in said real property to plaintiff husband, period. Okay, next paragraph. The checking and savings accounts of the parties shall be used first to pay all attorney's fees and court costs pertaining to the within action, semicolon. The balance of said accounts shall be divided equally between the parties hereto, period. At this point, I hope I remembered to write you a note pertaining to the adding of another little letter to defendant wife's list of sole and separate property. If I did not, don't worry about it, and I'll take care of it in this clause. If I did give you the note, then forget about the part of this clause which pertains to the cemetery lot containing the remains of the party's infant. Okay? All right, whatever the clause number is, let's go. You'll have to look on the cross-complaint to find out the description of these cemetery lots. If it isn't there, forget it, and do it thusly. The cemetery lots shall be divided between the parties, comma, and each may sell or otherwise dispose of his portion as he or she sees fit, semicolon, except, comma, however, comma, the cemetery lot containing the remains of the party's infant shall go to defendant wife as her sole and separate property, period. Next paragraph, even if I can't talk. Just overlook my frogginess. Plaintiff husband agrees that defendant wife will not be required to pay any taxes, comma, real or otherwise, comma. Oops, let's make that read. Be required to pay any property taxes, comma, real or personal, comma, during the calendar year 1967, comma, and he further agrees that she will not be required to pay home and automobile insurance until same are due in 1968, period. Okay, next paragraph. On condition that any interlocutory judgment, lowercase letters all the way, obtained herein contains terms consistent with this stipulation, comma, the defendant wife hereby admits service of a copy of the summons and complaint, comma, and hereby stipulates that the within action may be heard without further notice to defendant, comma, on the default calendar, comma, or otherwise, comma, at any time convenient to the court, period. Defendant wife further stipulates that she hereby waives, W-A-I-V-E-S, any and all rights granted or which may accrue to her under the provisions of the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Act of 1940, period. That's capital SSRA. Defendant wife hereby waives findings of fact and conclusions of law herein, period. By the way, we're going to need an original in 5 of that instead of an original in 4. And make a note and tab onto it, to this stipulation, that we're going to have an original in 3 copies, all signed and notarized, not just conformed. Then you can use Wayne Leach's stipulation as the format, if you like. Signatures as per page 3 of the Leach deal. The opposite attorney, of course, being Donald H. Freeman, F-R-E-E-M-A-N. Okay, and so much for Parchin for the moment. Now we might as well go ahead and get the letters in the Parchin matter out of the way. Date them as of Thursday, October 19th. This is to Mrs. Parchin, Ray, stipulation, comma, Parchin versus Parchin. Dear Mrs. Parchin, colon. Enclosed is the original of the, put the next title in cap, stipulation. No, on the contrary, let's forget about the letters right now. No, that is the letters to Parchin. But would you please call her and ask her if she can come into the office tomorrow, Thursday, October 19th, at 3:30. I will want her to read and sign her stipulation. And if she has no questions and I'm not busy, you may notarize it for her. I mean, and if I am busy, you can notarize it. Okay, now a couple of quick letters, original and one, on some church business. The first one is to Service Greeting Card Company, S-E-R-V-I-C-E, Service Greeting Card Company, 4937 South Durfee Avenue. That's D-U-R-F as in Fox, E-E, D-U-R-F-E-E, Durfee Avenue. Pico Rivera, California. That's two words, P-I-C-O, R-I-V-E, V as in victory, R-I-V-E-R-A, California. Attention, sales manager. Dear sir, the fifth quorum, that's Q-U-O-R-U-M, that's capital F, capital fifth, and capital quorum, you know. I mean capital F and Q. The fifth quorum of elders of the San Diego East Stake, S-T-A-K-E, of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints would like to make Christmas cards, comma, wrappings, comma, etc., available to the members of its ward, capital W-A-R-D, for the coming Christmas season, comma, as a fundraising is a hyphenated word, as a fundraising project, period. Our sales would be largely to adults, period. New paragraph, I would appreciate having samples. I would appreciate having your samples forwarded to the undersigned at 11245 Culver Court, comma, El Cajon, California, 92020, period. Please include all relevant instructions, period. New paragraph, thank you for your attention to this matter, period. VDY, KDS, under the Karl Sudekum type chairman, comma, finance committee, next line, fifth quorum of elders. Okay. Type that one, proof it, and sign it and send it. Now another one to the original one also. Artistic Card Company, A-R-T-I-S-T-I-C, Artistic Card Company, Elmira, E-L-M-I-R-A, Elmira, New York. Attention, sales manager, dear sir, same first sentence as before. The fifth quorum of elders of the San Diego State Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Like my Christ card wrappers available, all news and so on in the sentence. If your company holds sales without a franchise being required, comma, I would appreciate having your full catalog, comma, samples, comma, and instructions, period. New paragraph. Please send any relevant information to the undersigned at 11245 Culver Court, El Cajon, California, 92020, period. New paragraph, thank you for your attention to this matter, period, VTY. KDS, Chairman, Finance Committee, Fifth Quorum of Elders. Okay, that's it for those letters. Now let's think about Norris for a while. I'm reading over the Norris versus Norris memo that you typed for me. Would you take your pen and make some corrections? Following the first paragraph, the Q colon, that should read, was business sole and separate property of husband, that time of division, question mark, not each. Under the law, in square paragraph 8, fourth line should read, so considered it will be obvious from the review of the evidence below that not all of the small pharmacy business. Change in to not. Every place that I said H, using the letter H to designate husband, you have typed in each, which is reasonable. But watch that. Watch it. Down in the 8th line, same paragraph, it should be is community, comma, burden of proof upon H, as in husband, to prove by preponderance and so on. Okay, now let's type an original and 2 copies of the following letter. This is to Monroe, M-O-N-R-O-E, W. Kirkman, K-I-R-K-M-A-N, Suite 1921, U.S. National Bank Building, 2nd Avenue and Broadway, San Diego, something, California. Ray Norris versus Norris. Dear Mr. Kirkman, in response to your letter of September 25th, 1967, and after studying the partnership agreement you submitted, along with some case law, comma, I submit the following. I submit the following as Mrs. Norris's position at this time, period, new paragraph. As to alimony for Mrs. Norris, comma, her ultimate position regarding same will be dependent upon the final solution to the apportionment problem connected with the Norris business, comma, Bay City Electric Works, period. And new paragraph. I call to your attention the case of Haldeman versus Haldeman, H-A-L-D-E-M-A-N, Parent 1962, 202 CA 2nd, 498, comma, which presents a fact situation similar to that of our clients, period. Of course, comma, the court's opinion indicates that the tracing problem is not the cut and dried, C-U-T-A-N-D-D-R-I-E-D, the cut and dried situation your letter indicates, period, new paragraph. After mentioning the statutory presumption of community, comma, the court goes on to say that a business is a type of property which is a composite of tangible and intangible properties, period. Its tangibles will be its fixtures, comma, etc., comma, and its intangibles will include principally its goodwill. Goodwill is one word. Its goodwill as a going business, period. So considered, comma, the court thought it obvious that not all of the small pharmacy business Mr. Haldeman acquired before his marriage could be traced to the substantial business he owned at the time of his divorce, period. And after observing that the courts generally employ 2 methods of apportionment, comma, the court went on to say that it could select whatever method that would achieve substantial justice, period, and, comma, referring to the lower court's finding of separate property, comma, it went on to say, comma, quote, it seems inescapable that the court merely determined, comma, we think arbitrarily, comma, that because respondent owned the shell of a business at the time of his marriage, comma, it was all his separate property, dash, however much its assets may have multiplied due, this is D-U-E, not D-O, due to his labor and skill, period, end quote. New paragraph. In addition, comma, Mrs. Norris assures me that Mr. Norris obtained a CalVet, capital C-A-L, capital V-E-T, a CalVet loan, a CalVet business loan, shortly after their marriage, which was used to keep the business on its feet, period. If this is true, comma, then we may very well have a business in which the husband's entire interest is community, period. New paragraph. I have carefully examined the partnership agreement and journal sheets which you forwarded to me, comma, but find nothing therein to warrant a change in our position, period. New paragraph. However, comma, a question that can be removed from contention is that of who shall obtain the divorce, period. Mrs. Norris has indicated that she would prefer that Mr. Norris file, comma, and when all other matters have been settled, comma, Mrs. Norris will enter her appearance and waiver, period. Dan signed VDY KDS. Copy to, and it need not show on the original, but a copy to Mrs. Norris. And that is it for the moment. House and all fixtures, comma, equipment and property belonging thereto to buyer, comma. Make that a period instead of a comma. Buyer agrees to pay to sellers the sum of $70 per month. The first payment to be made on or before blank month and day, comma, 1967, comma. Let's back up. Let's make that read the first payment to be made on or before May 1st, 1967, comma, and a like payment to be made on or before the first day of each and every month during the rental period. Payments are to be made either by buyer personally handing to sellers or seller's duly appointed agent, comma, or by registered mail to the last address designated by sellers, period. Payments made later than the 15th day of any month will be subject to a late charge of $3, period. Sellers grant to buyer a 30-day grace period following the due date, semicolon. As to said grace period, comma, time is of the essence, E-S-S-E-N-C-E, period. All of the foregoing dates apply. Let's make that read where a payment is by registered mail, comma. All of the foregoing dates apply at the address designated by sellers, period. Strike the period. At the address designated by sellers to which payments must be sent, period. Next paragraph, number 2 it is. This rental agreement shall continue until midnight, April 30th, 1969, at which time buyer may elect to purchase the above described premises, period. He agrees to notify sellers by 5 p.m., May 2nd, 1969. Strike that, he agrees to notify, and so on. In the event buyer does not elect to purchase the above described premises, the rental agreement between the parties hereto shall terminate, and buyer shall become a tenant, T-E-N-A-N-T, at will, W-I-L-L, no caps, period. In the event buyer elects to purchase said premises, he agrees to notify sellers in writing of said intention on or before 5 p.m., March 2nd, 1969, period. In the event buyer does elect to purchase said premises, all payments made under this rental agreement, like that, all payments made by buyer under this rental agreement shall be applied toward the purchase price of the above described premises, semicolon, said purchase price is $12,000, period. Next paragraph. Sellers and buyer agree that if buyer should fail for a period of 30 days, after any rental payment shall be due under the terms of this agreement, to pay to the seller any of said payments, or shall fail to comply with any of the covenants on his part to be kept and performed, then sellers shall be released from all obligation in law or equity to convey said property, and buyer shall forfeit all right thereto, and any and all payments theretofore made by the buyer under this agreement shall be considered as rent and compensation for the use and occupancy of said premises, and be retained by sellers, period. Next paragraph. In the event buyer elects to purchase the above described premises,